Now let's get to the second one. Usually, if I spend 50% of the time crafting my vision, I spend maybe 30% of my time crafting the choices I make. So this particular question in the framework called where we play or not play, but if I translate that into more simple wording, it just means what kind of product choices I have to make in the very beginning, given I want to win. So now use the same three company, same, kind of three examples with the winning aspiration we just talked about. Let's look at the particular choices they make in the very beginning. Wish, right? Remember, they're talking about being the actual bargaining site for value conscious people. They're not sold by Amazon. So to them, the value is all about serving their unmet needs. And then who are the people, they try to serve? They really just want to start with the budget shoppers in developed countries. So I remember one interview Peter, the founder of Wish, made in Recode. He was talking about after the election of 2016, he's like, I just realized a lot of our customers were the invisible half of America. And those are the people who usually Silicon Valley never heard about. They don't believe someone will use that sort of application. They don't use themselves. They don't hear other people use it, and they don't believe anyone else will use it. Hence, a Silicon Valley-based company usually would not think about that use case at all. But he found that is opportunity for him. So, he made that choice because it's a customer-centric vision. So he make first choice on the customers. And then with that, it's easy to make the second choice, like where those people shop. And if I want to be differentiated to these people, then Amazon seems that mobile is the right choice to reach out to them. Hence, he started working on the mobile app. And then price, obviously, is super important here. It needs to be rock bottom because he's trying to attract those budget shoppers. And then if you want a rock bottom price, then you have to think about what products I can allow people to sell on this platform. Then obviously, branded goods is too expensive. It has to be discounted, unbranded goods, and maybe even small goods. So price can be even more, lower. And then you think about where the suppliers are for those products. Then, naturally, that choice will come from developing countries. And they started with China, which is a very smart decision back then. And then if you go through all this exercise and thinking about how I can marketing to the potential customers, since it's a mobile app, since it's budget shoppers, and things, those are the people who potentially just shopping for something they don't think they want, because otherwise they will go to Amazon, then social media seems a very natural fit for that channel. And then once you make all those decisions, think about all the costs that are associated with it, right? In order to bring the price down, very importantly, the business need to operate in a way that is sustainable. So one choice they made to not prioritize is delivery speed from the very beginning, because their supplies is from another country, and people are more conscious about price. And then the trade-off, then obviously, is the delivery speed. So even I think today, if you order something on Wish, it probably would deliver to it in a week. And in the past, it can be a month. And so, which is totally different spectrum compared to Amazon. And then with all those decisions made, then, it's natural to think about business model should be commission-based, because they are not going to be that suppliers themselves, they will be this marketplace platform. So that's sort of a set of product choices Wish made. Now let's take a look at Instagram, which is starting from a problem-driven type of vision. What kind of the main choices they have to make? So things they start with the problem, they first need to identify the problem, right? Like really crisply, like what are the top couple problems they need to solve? And then these are the 3 problems they identify. And then, by the way, all of this you can find online interview clips. Those founders actually talk about those choices in the early days a lot. And then you feel free to find other type of examples if you feel these 3 examples are not enough for you to think about this framework. So the 3 problems they identify is like terrible, photo quality, people cannot share everywhere, and took a long time to upload. Basically just the 3 problems. And hence, if they want to solve it, obviously platform choice is very natural mobile. And they actually even go down 1 layer further. They started with iOS. because a lot of creative community, which is the second one, their target market, use iPhone way more than Android. And then if you make those choices, then content choice is also relatively straightforward. You're focusing on the community-driven content. And then the business model, to be honest, in the very beginning, they didn't really think a lot about it. But given they're working on consumer apps, the expectation is down the road, they would use ads when it's the right timing. All right, now finally, let's look at the third example. If you're winning aspirations from a gigantic, vision statement, then really more important is understand how that industry work. And if you want to realize your mission, what's the most biggest roadblocker? So in SpaceX example, their biggest roadblocker is cost. It's all about cost, right? Because the space exploration for years, generations, for decades is only a government-funded program because it's super, super expensive. So if they want to one day be that private company, put people to Mars, they need to bring the cost down. So their whole company's objective in the very beginning, even today, is cost. They need to bring the cost down. And once they bring the cost down, then the business model is relatively straightforward because they can think about, now I have a much more competitive platform compared to the government platform. Maybe we can do space delivery, do high bandwidth communication for other agents or institutions or private companies. And then with that, then this will determine their client segments, which is public and private associations that need space delivery. So that's kind of the logic flow. The choices they have to make there seems to be much smaller because ultimately their roadblock is just one, cost. How do you do cost? And Elon Musk talk about how to use first principles to sort of break down different components cost. And then when he added all those components cost, he found it was actually way cheaper than the overall cost of a rocket. And that's where he started his journey and tried to figure out how he can leverage the scale and reconstruct the rocket so that he can bring down the cost. All right, so hopefully these examples give you some clue how important this area is, because all the choices you make here basically are the most hardest constraints you're gonna face when you are designing your strategy. And I will draw another analogy for you if this is not clear. Especially for the designers out there, you probably feel this is a little bit familiar to what you've been using. There's a designer framework. Basically, you start with a problem statement you try to solve, but then you have to add a lot of constraints. And that sort of help focus the brainstorming, the design process. So product strategy design is another type of design. So same principle applies. Hence that constraints also applies in the same fashion.